Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. We're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is July the 10th. We are halfway through this week on a weird Wednesday, and it is a weird one indeed. We're going to be talking about the Idiocracy, which is to say the folks that run our country. But we're also going to be talking about a more technical term, which I have improperly used. I like to call it the Geriocracy because that sounds good to me, but it's actually called Gerontocracy. There is a word that describes rule by the old people. What a weird thing to do. Why would you let the old rule? Now, there is a place for people who have age and wisdom in leadership. It's usually in the advisory council. If you think about many of the historical sort of places where democratic process have worked, they've had councils of elders before. You can even see this in a tribal environment, a council of elders. You can go to people who have age and wisdom, but you still need people that are young and bold to step forward and do the work. So, despite the fact that I would love for geriocracy to be a word, and we can obviously play with that a little bit, gerontocracy is a real concept, and it's really dangerous. The reason it's dangerous is because as you age, and I'm only in my 40s, but I know that I look at risk differently than I did when I was in my 20s. There are jumps that I won't make when I'm running after with my kids. There are things that I am not going to do in a vehicle that I might have otherwise taken that risk. That's good. You should actually season your life with a little bit of age and wisdom as you go and you evaluate risk. But what you should not be is looking at things like rugs and stairs as an existential threat. Stepping up and needing a teleprompter for every single word that you say. It's not the way that our country is going to be successful because a huge chunk of our country is younger than 1,000 years old. But right now, we have more people over the age of 70 than you are going to be very comfortable hearing. We've covered this before with a smaller audience. We're going to do it again. We're going to kind of run through the list and discuss this gerontocracy. And the real question is this: why do these people keep getting elected? Even my own congressman, who votes the way that I would more or less want him to, he's 81 years old. John Carter is 81 years old. He actually retired from a full career before becoming a legislator, and he's been in office since I was in college. And that was a long time ago, folks. That was over 20 years ago. This guy's been in office for a very long time, and he's not the worst offender. We have people like Chuck Grassley, Republicans, over the age of 90. If you wouldn't let somebody drive a bus with your kids, if you would look at them and go, I'm not sure. I remember seeing guys in their 60s driving buses when I was in high school and thinking, does this guy actually have kind of the speed to be able to go after this? Is he going to be able to make the reasonable reaction time in this huge vehicle? If you would have a little bit of a worry or if you would be concerned about this person driving your kids in a bus, why are we letting them run around with nuclear codes and passing legislation? So crazy. All right, we're going to get into a bunch of stuff like that. First, if you guys are not joining us on Rumble, that is the place where you can join our live chat as you see on the screen right now. Give us a like, give us a follow on this channel. And if you want to subscribe, you can do it on Rumble. I think you still have to be in the browser. You can't do it from the app. I don't know why, but if you want to subscribe to our channel, $5 a month does go directly to us. It supports us. Rumble takes nothing. They process it for free. That's kind of cool. Not something you see on any of the other content creation platforms. So that's why we live here over on Rumble. And we can say what we like, which we cannot do all the time. You'll see many of our videos will get censored or demonetized over on YouTube. And we don't get a lot of play on Twitter as much as we did. Wonder who we upset. It just keeps happening. Folks, join us over there. We appreciate it. And let's do a quick sponsor read. Let me just start off with my buddies over at Catholic Vote. CatholicVote.org is where you go. If you guys want to get the loop, do CatholicVote.org/loop. And you can also do Get Loop if you want to just sign up for it. Let me kind of run through what's on today's loop. More House Democrats are pleading with Joe Biden to drop out. Why? Because he's old. It turns out the thing we are talking about today, they are very, very upset. There was a situation about John Deere going woke. I think I've done enough of the outrage porn. I'm not going to get into that, but if you guys want to read it, go to today's loop. And then also a kind of an interesting discussion about the war on words, about the AP style book. That's one of the ways that the left continues to move their messaging forward, is that they own and attack the means of news distribution and the way that things are written. And that's going to be like capitalizing the word B in black, but lowercase w in white. There are these subtle little cues that go on. There's a whole article about that. You guys can check that out. Go to CatholicVote.org. Our friends that are in the fight for faith, family, and freedom, and they keep the Kyle Seraphin Show on the air one way or another. I don't know if we're going to be doing a Between the Lines this week because our producer is on the road, but I will keep you guys posted. Usually those are dropped tomorrow. We haven't done one yet, so it's possible. Anyhow, let's get started right away with what's going on. As I said, he's too old, and many Democrats are recognizing it. This is coming from the so-called apolitical AP. The weird thing about age is that it's kind of a circle, is it not? Anybody who's experienced older folks in your family, you've seen grandparents or parents that are aging, and then you turn around and you also have young children. It's that same kind of thing that starts off when you have little kids that they don't have any mobility at all. You have to carry them and you have to take them everywhere. It's the same thing when somebody reaches end of life and they're in a wheelchair. A little bit after that with your kids, they're toddlers and they're kind of moving around, but everything is a threat, whether it be a stairwell, you got to rope those off. You got to make sure that all the hard edges are kept away. You got to keep the, the light sockets covered so that they don't put a fork in it or whatever. And the same story when you have people that are starting to get, they have confidence, they have many, many decades of mobility, but it's not what it used to be. And so falling down is a real problem. You start clearing out rugs. And as a paramedic, fall dangers are real for the elderly. And a broken hip or a broken leg or a broken foot is almost enough to end some people. And you guys always probably know what I'm talking about. If you lose mobility, then you actually are more and more likely to lose your ability to survive in this world, and your body starts shutting down when you stop moving. The World Series of Death, which I don't know why I have that expression in my head, but when I was a paramedic, I had a guy come into the emergency room. He was in his early 90s. I think he was like 92 or 93. He had been at the gym earlier the day before. He was a guy that did Meals on Wheels for elderly people. So he was actually like in his 90s and servicing the broken down people in their 60s that couldn't actually get out of their houses. And this dude goes up, takes care of all these old people, then slips and falls, stepping out of the bed on a Saturday morning, and basically is brain dead. He's a massive brain bleed. But he was in his own house, taking care of himself. He outlasted a wife, and like I said, in his early 90s. Pretty amazing. Very few of us reach that age. That's why I called it was so exceptional. Most of the people that you see in that age bracket that come into an emergency room are destroyed. And they're not 100% there. And that's why they almost always have a medical proxy. There's a lot of people that can't make their own decisions. And we've elected, allegedly, one of these types to be in office right now. And that's why they can't cover it anymore. They've been covering it for years, by the way. We know this. I keep reading more and more news organizations like acting shocked, like somehow this came out of nowhere. He was always this old, and he was more and more doddering as time went on. But they're starting to come out and talk about it, which is quite fun. I want to kind of pivot and do a different gear because the people that are running Joe Biden are the ones that kind of freak me out the worst. And there's some indications that not only has this been going on for a while, which most of us have been aware of, just kind of the nefarious nature of the Biden family who doesn't want to give this stuff up. So I've got a quick story, and I'm not even sure if I put it up on I didn't actually put it on a slide. So let me just talk about it. There was an article that was written in January of 2022 by a guy called T. Beckett Adams. And the story is entitled Fanfare for the First Lady. Now, you might not know this, but that's a song. That is the title of a song. It was a song that was composed by the Marine Corps Band, and the U.S. Marine Band created this played it and then retired it almost immediately after this article went out. So he put the article out in January, and within a month or two, they pulled the song and they didn't use it anymore. I'm going to play you that song because it's really weird. But before we do it, I want to make the case that we, with this gerontocracy, are moving towards idiocracy. And idiocracy is ruled by the dumbest. And so we are kind of pretty close to that. Here is the movie, Idiocracy, the intro phase. I think they're doing it better. In fact, I hope that we get there faster. I'm going to give you another piece of evidence that's really funny, and I keep telling people about it, and everybody kind of looks down at their shoes when I tell them this story. First, let's do the little intro. This is President Camacho from Idiocracy. We're almost there, folks.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of America! President Camacho!
Your monkey ass down.
Okay, so that's where we're headed. This is where we're at right now, where the First Lady has her own walkout music. It's just not nearly as fun. And the reason it's composed is it is a spouse piece to Hail to the Chief, which we play and the bands play when the president comes out. She wanted her own because Jill Biden definitely isn't obsessed with power and definitely isn't keeping her husband in office so that she can enjoy the trappings of being in the White House.
Ladies and gentlemen, the First Lady of the United States, Jill Biden, accompanied by the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, and the 2020 and 2021 National Teachers of the Year, Tabitha Rosproy and Juliana Urtubey.
There it is. It's fanfare to the First Lady. Can you see us? We're all just grimacing. What is going on? They created this piece just for Jill. I'm so disgusted by that. She's such trash. I also just saw, just so you guys know, I do watch the chat kind of as it rolls. And Ura just said that he was upset. I assume an Ura is a he. That us young pups are making fun of the old people. No, I just want you assholes to stop running for office. Stop. Look, I'm going to show you how bad it is. There are so many people over the age of 70 that are running for office. Sit down. Get out of office. We don't care. That's what it comes down to. But the sad thing is that people in my generation are not running for office, apparently. The problem is when you hold on to that power and you won't let go of it, and your arthritic claw will not let it go, like Chuck Grassley. Just get out. I know you can run and win again because you're the incumbent and people know your name, but just get out. Stop. Stop trying to aspire to die in office, people. Like, you should look at Dianne Feinstein as a harbinger of what's to come and a warning, not as an aspirational thing. Good Lord. It really does. It's like, it blows my mind. All right. So that fanfare is the thing that blows my mind. And the problem and the reason I make this claim is that once you start moving into the elderly stage of life where someone else has to look after you, and believe me, I think that's brilliant. That's the way that human beings have always seen. Like, we've always done this. We've always taken care of those because there's wisdom and there's age and there's value in that. I want grandparents to be around for their kids. I don't want them in office, though. I really don't. Get out of office and go look after your babies. That's the purpose. You're supposed to actually have some time that you can share all those interesting stories, all the weird little jokes that your grandparents pulled on you. You're supposed to be able to go and do that with your grandkids. But one of the issues is my generation keeps not having babies. So, I guess some of you don't know what else to do except stay in office. Very, very weird. Fanfare for the First Lady. Like I said, when we start seeing that parallel between early life and end of life, there is a infantilization that happens. And it's happening in our White House right now. There are hours when you cannot talk to my 3-year-old. If you go in the middle of the night and try to wake my 3-year-old up and have a conversation with him, he will either not wake up at all or he will lose it and scream because he doesn't understand how to process that. And that continues to happen for people as they age. Like, less and less are they capable of doing things at weird hours, which we saw during the hours of the debate. Obviously, Donald Trump, far superior in hours of darkness. Joe Biden, that is his nemesis. He can't go out there and speak during the hours of darkness. That brings up some real problems because the world is not all in the same time zone as Eastern Standard Time. And things can happen all over the place. I've got this like very unsettling feeling after watching these last couple things. First of all, Peter Doocy introduces a very simple question. Hey, what happens if something happens outside of Joe Biden's active hours? And they're like, oh yeah, he's got it. And then Bret Baier asked the same thing of John Kirby. And the answer is it's not reassuring. It's worse than if he hadn't answered it at all. He should have dodged this one. So I'm going to give you a little example of what I'm talking about here. This stuff is actually, even though it's funny, and it is funny, because Karine Jean-Pierre looks like a fool. She had to walk out of the office. She had to walk off her podium and leave because of these questions. It's sort of terrifying because of the power and the status that the United States used to hold on to. Ready? Here we go.
Well, he also said he's sharpest before 8 p.m. So, say that the Pentagon at some point picks up an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady?
He has a team that lets him know of any news that is pertinent and important to the American people. He has someone or that is decided, obviously, with his National Security Council on who gets to tell him that news.
Well, he also said he's sharpest before 8 p.m. So
he's got a team, so somebody will go wake him up and then they'll tell him about it. So they get a little bit more granular on Fox News, asking the question. The story was that Barack Obama was running on this 3 a.m. phone call. Who do you want to pick up the phone, right? Do you want someone that's able to handle it? One of you just said Ghostbusters. Who are you going to call, right? Here you go. Are you ready? This is not a good answer. We're going to break it down because when I heard it, I went, oh, am I the only one who heard this? And then I saw that there was some social media buzz about the same answer. Here we go.
A couple of elections ago, there was the 3 a.m. call. Now there's real concern about can he handle something, that doesn't happen between 10 and 4 p.m.
He gets calls in the middle of the night all the time. And a couple of G7s ago, Brett, you might remember, there was a missile that fell in Poland. There was a concern that it could have been a Russian missile. That call came in to him in the middle of the night. He called together the G7 in a snap meeting by 8 o'clock that morning.
What? So a couple of years ago, there was a missile that fell in Poland, which turned out to be an accidental firing. It wasn't Russians, but there was the concern. He got the call in the middle of the night about it. And he returned that call at 8 a.m. during business hours. That's what I just took away from that. Is that what you got? That's the reassurance you have, is that a couple of years ago when he was actually more with it, which he was still not with it, he had to wait until morning to go and return the phone call. And now he's got it. John Kirby's 61. John Kirby's on the edge of the age where I'm like, hey, maybe not it. Maybe if you can collect Social Security, maybe that's the time when you need to be out of public office. How about 67 and up? We don't need it. Like, we appreciate it. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being there. Hard stops then. Not because some people can't handle it. There are people that are totally with it. There are people that are younger, that are older than I thought, and they are more with it than I would have expected for that age, no doubt. But we make rules across the board because when they decline, if you've ever seen somebody, I've had women who were Alzheimer's patients, dementia patients, who I started transporting to doctor's offices and things like that. I used to do some inter-facility transporting right when I got out of the military. And I would pick them up from a memory care facility, right? And I would pick them up and they would be talking to me. They would walk to the ambulance. They would climb onto the seat. We'd strap them in. We'd have this nice chat all the way over to the doctor's office. 6 months later, their mouth was open. They were unable to blink because they had lost control of their entire body. Their tongue was cracking from not being refreshed by closing mouths. Like, it's horrific to watch that stuff happen. I was also really sad that their children were not there to be part of it because that's also pretty awful. I don't know what their kids were doing, but that was abusive. It can happen in 6 months. You can go from sentient and capable to being trapped inside your body and not have any way out. And I know that woman didn't lose everything in there. Her brain was still working, I could tell. If you've been around it, you know what I'm talking about. 6 months. We're going to put somebody in office, and then 6 months later, that could be the case. It's terrible. and it's abusive. And we've got a guy that a couple of years ago used to wait until the morning. And now what does he do? Now he has to wait a week before he's ready for a debate performance, which is catastrophic. And that infantilization that we're talking about ends up being a really, really embarrassing situation for the United States, for all of us. This is a British newspaper. This is The Independent. White House is roasted for saying Joe Biden will give a quote unquote big boy press conference. The question is potty training next? Conservatives are upset. Here's the conservatives' pounce argument, because this is unbecoming. This was apparently a joke. Do you know what's not a good joke? It's not a good joke to talk about having a big boy press conference for a man who is supposed to be the leader of the free world. This is so embarrassing. It should embarrass the people that said it. It should embarrass the man. Like, is he going to put on his big boy pants? You know how I use the word big boy? I use it for my 3-year-old. Eat your food like a big boy. Come on, buddy. Put on your pants like a big boy. Come on, Joe. Have a press conference like a big boy. And then you have other grown-ups who are supposed to be in very, very serious roles for the United States government mimicking this infantilization, this toddlerization, because we have a gerontocracy, because we have people over the age of 80 that can't handle their own business. And so we have to, and I'm going to show you like one of the weirdest things I've ever seen in a clip. I actually don't even know what he said, but here's the big boy. This is a joke, guys. You can't take a joke. You don't have any sense of humor. We're the joke.
After that, the president will hold a press conference. I guess a big boy press conference is what we're calling it, and take some questions from y'all.
This week, President Biden will speak to national labor leaders of AFL-CIO, host the NATO summit to show the unprecedented strength of our alliance, hold a press conference, a big boy press conference.
I'm sorry, I clicked away from that too soon because I got grossed out. A big boy press conference, right? It's devastating. He's going to go talk to the leaders of NATO. Then he's going to go and talk to the leaders of a labor union at the AFL-CIO conference. And then he's going to have a big boy press conference. What in the actual hell are we doing? And it's always that female, it's this overtaking of the feminine into a space that it doesn't belong. And they're so snarky about it. Karine Jean-Pierre, she's going to act like that, like that's just a thing we do. We just say fun things here at the White House. Meanwhile, allegations that he's incontinent while he's talking to the Pope. He's a laughingstock. It's disappointing on every level to see this kind of stuff. It's crazy. And then you end up with this man saying things that like, he just can't get words out. Look, on a night with less sleep, we're all going to be less competent. But that's not the argument you make after getting a week at a retreat. A week after you did some world travel. Like he was jet lagged for a week? How on earth are they going to actually run this guy? It's crazy. So this, I don't know what he said, folks. I'm going to let the chat, you tell me what this man just said. Because this looks like something we probably shouldn't have a president saying. Did he just say that he effed somebody's wife? You tell me. I'm going to play it twice. There's only one way. You have to hear this multiple times.
Guided this alliance through one of the most consequential periods in its history. I realize, I was talking to your wife, I personally ask you to extend your service. Forgive me. And you put your...
What was that, Joe? He was effing somebody's wife? I swear to God, I don't know what he said. You guys tell me. I'll play it one more time.
Guided this alliance through one of the most consequential periods in its history. I realize, I was talking to your wife, I personally ask you to extend your service.
He might have said, I was talking to your wife, and he just choked on the word. But that's not what I heard. Holy moly. Talking to your wife when it comes out like effing your wife, that's an age thing. It's his stutter. We're just jumping on him. Shame on us. Okay. He also took credit, by the way. This is also really fun because it's going to go into another little piece. MSNBC has picked up on there isn't actually an argument for Joe Biden right now. He doesn't have it. He's got no argument for himself. His argument is that Donald Trump is really bad, which he continues to make to the people that care about it. But he doesn't make the argument, this is what I'm doing better. Mostly because what he does is terrible. he's really bad at it. He's making the argument that the thing that Donald Trump pushed NATO about is his victory. This is a weird take because I don't remember anyone making the argument before that NATO allies should be kicking in more money and more of their GDP should be going to funding their own defense, because essentially we're not on the front lines with a Russia or any other sort of aggression. Right? That's a Donald Trump position. It was a Donald Trump position. And everybody was like, how dare you? Like, we could spend all the money because we have the money. Like, the U.S. military should defend everybody. Right? Joe Biden is claiming victory for Donald Trump's policy move. Here it is.
In the year 2020, the year I was elected president, only 9 NATO allies are spending 2% of their defense GDP on defense. This year, 23 will spend at least 2%.
Okay, so a bunch of them are going to spend money that Donald Trump called for. Maybe it's because he doesn't have any good ideas of his own, that he's not able to actually push his own policy stuff into the front. I think that's a big chunk of it. Before we go over and talk about that, guys, if you want to support actual patriots, and they're in kind of a rough spot right now because Patriot Coolers is based in Houston. If you guys know, Houston got hit pretty hard with a hurricane. So you're going to have probably a little bit of slower order coming out of patriotcoolers.com. Again, patriotcoolers.com. Our promo code is KYLE. I've got 2 of them sitting on the desk right now. This is the olive green or the army green. If you guys want a really good looking cup, this one is fantastic. It's got suspendable stickers because I'm that kind of guy. Even at 42 years old, I still put stickers on my stuff like a child. So be it. You know, we all have some childish tendencies. We just try to keep it out of the national politics. PatriotCoolers.com. Patriot Coolers is where you go. And like I said, give them a little bit of a grace period because their warehouse is in Houston and it might be a little bit underwater. I heard the other day that they had internet, but there's all kinds of places out of Houston that are out of power. So shipping is probably a little bit slow. And that is the nature of the beast. Promo code KYLE if you guys want to support them. Look, the big problem is that there's no vision. And this is what MSNBC is landing on. Not a good sign when the hard left of MSNBC is saying that Joe Biden has been banking on a fear of Donald Trump, but has forgotten to actually say what his serious policy agendas look like for another term. If your entire policy is I'm not Donald Trump, that only works once. And it works as long as you hide in a basement and you don't say things like you're effing somebody's wife while you're at the NATO summit, and you don't have people talking about a big boy conference because you can't actually take real questions for more than a few seconds at a time. Maybe you would try to focus on your wins. I think we all realize is that there's no win. He's been disastrous on almost all the levels. Housing unaffordable, inflation going up, interest rates now had to climb because of a bumbling. Our energy independence gone. Like all the stuff that we talked about yesterday that are the Republican plank, all of those things are essentially directly the opposite of what is going on in America today. Open borders. Illegal migrants coming in, illegal immigrants, calling them what you want, some of them criminals. Well, it turns out Donald Trump was right about that, wasn't it? Like there's an awful lot of people that are aware now that some of the folks coming into this country didn't come here to work really hard and do the American dream the way that generations before them did. I don't think we have a real problem in this country with the idea that someone would come here, bust their ass, and then be able to have a say, you know, or their kids might have a say in being here if they just came in and contribute. But you got to assimilate. You got to actually start doing the America that the rest of us all signed up for. You don't get to show up and just hope that people who have been working their ass off for their whole life are going to throw money into the till and my tax dollars are going to go support you. Like, who the hell are you? There is a pretty good example of this attitude that doesn't make a lot of sense it doesn't make sense in their own life. They're actually not able to live by their own values. We're going to talk about Sotomayor and the U.S. Marshals in just a second. Let me just cover down a little further on just how old this group is, because, again, I think it's worth you having facts as you go out into the world. This is an older article. I think we've actually quoted it before. It comes from February of last year. So every age here is up by 18 months, which means every single person on this list is at least 1 year older than the little tally that I'll show you. But how old is the 118th Congress? They show you this is the House and the Senate. And if you look at the bulk of them, 25%, 50, over 50%, you can see very clearly are over the age of 50. Now, I don't hate people being in that power age. 40 to 60, that's a strong age of people that have had time in the world, that have been able to learn some things, and they can go and they can act on it. And even up to the age of 70, like I said, that 67 might have to be the hard cutoff just because we need a number that makes sense. But there are people like Marsha Blackburn. I didn't know she was 70, but she is. So there's some people in that age bracket that are still 100% with it. They're bringing their wisdom and their knowledge, and they've stepped away from whatever industry that they were in. Okay, fine. But look at those folks over 80, 4 or 5%. What the hell are we doing with those? You're over 70. You got 15%. You got 30% of the Senate is over 70 years old. Holy moly. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for them. I don't want this for them. And look, it's overwhelmingly Democrats, it turns out, on the top of the age bracket. Chuck Grassley, though, leads the pack at 90. Dianne Feinstein died in office. Bernie Sanders right behind. Mitch McConnell had health problems at 81. So we can't just call out one side of it, but I did put Maxine Waters out there because we've got this really fun clip. One of the things that happens when you hit a certain age and you stop paying attention to the normal things, you ever catch folks that are they just don't care anymore? That's kind of fun. It is kind of fun to watch. Like, I don't hate old people that just stopped caring about the stupid things that we do, our societal norms. I do think it's funny when a lady goes on a cable news network, this looks like, I think it's CNN, and decides to just adjust her wig because she got distracted by what's going on. She forgot she was doing an interview. This is fun to watch. If you guys haven't seen this clip, that's why Maxine Waters is on our thumbnail. Check this out.
They've seen President Biden. They've lived through his presidency. They've also seen former President Trump. They've lived through his presidency. They've heard these arguments about democracy, about the fate of the election. And yet Trump is not only winning, but winning increasingly by a larger margin. So what is the plan among Democrats to change that trajectory? It sounds like you're talking about saying and doing all the same things, but do you believe that something needs to change?
I think we need to keep working.
Well, just got to keep working because with that, we don't even know what's going on anymore. She's over there. Like, if you're not seeing this, if you're missing the video is priceless. She looks like she's looking into a mirror. She might be looking into like a teleprompter like I am. And she's like fixing her hair. She's like, oh, it's parted on the right. I want it parted on the left. And so she's moving her wig around on CNN, on the nighttime news. She doesn't even know what's going on. Do you think that makes any bit of sense? It's just a tiny little snippet. Plus, she said some wild things that don't make any sense at all, but I don't get it. I don't get it. These silly people, like, they're absurd. She would never do that if she was aware. Nobody's like, oh yeah, that's what people do. They just get on and they fix their wig on CNN. Fix your wig before you get on CNN and then leave it. I've done these TV hits like this. I've done major network television. I've done it in my own house, which is really nice. I've also done it in a studio. It's really, really awkward, folks. I got to tell you, you're looking probably at a blank screen of maybe yourself if you're lucky. You usually can't even see the host. You've got them piped in through these like not nice earbuds like I have, but these like little tubes that are hollow sounding. So you get this kind of like weird, it's like listening to a police radio, which I had some familiarity with. So you've got weird audio getting piped in and you're just sitting and talking to a blank screen. It's the most unnatural thing in the world until you're old enough that you don't even remember you're doing that. And then you're like, I don't like the way my hair is sitting on my forehead. I'm just going to fix it. Who does that? It's so unnatural to go and sit and do network television like that. There's no way you would forget that you are you're sitting on this weird stool. You have to sit upright. There's someone that's powdering you and stuff and doing this stuff because your head is too shiny. Like all this stuff. It's very, very unnatural. So to forget that you're there and start fixing your wig, absolutely bizarre. Totally, totally weird. But like I said, they're stuck in it now. They all have to get in. They have no choice but to push forward faster and harder. And so Nancy, it doesn't matter what age. If you want to be in power in the Democrat Party, you've got to stand behind Joe. They don't have any choice, which is an amazing position for Republicans until you consider the fact that these people are not going to just hand this over. I pushed out to the guy who's a student for Trump's, I can't remember, Ryan Fournier, I think is his last name. And we were talking about it yesterday we punched it out on Twitter. It's like the idea, and Mike Benz has the same. Is there anything that indicates to you that these people are ready to just like turn over power, allow a free and fair election, and then shake hands and do the high five, the good game that we used to do when I was a kid playing sports? Do you get the feeling that they're ready to just do a good game? Like, you guys did a better job. We ran an old guy and we ran out of rope. Does it seem like what's happening in November? Is that what you think these people are going to do? You think Jill Biden's ready to give up fanfare for the first lady? You think that the people that are holding on with their arthritic claws as they lose all the collagen in their skin and it starts hanging on, they just have a bony finger, they're going to just hold on? Like Nancy Pelosi's doing it. Hakeem Jeffries has no choice. He got confronted. Here's a couple of different people talking about how, yeah, they're all in on Joe. It makes me more concerned. Donald Trump is going to thrash him in a fair election. Even though Donald Trump is too old. Let's be real. Like he's 78. He's past my number. But he's infinitely more capable than the man who's claiming maybe he effed somebody else's wife who's a person at NATO and has to be told about his big boy comment. You think Donald Trump's team is like, hey, sir, we're gonna have a big boy rally. You're gonna be out there on your own. No, Donald Trump just goes out there and does his thing, right? Okay, fine. He's with it. He's the exception to most people. He has more energy than most people much younger than him, no doubt. But do you think they're just gonna turn it over and say, nice job?
I made clear publicly the day after the debate that I support President Joe Biden and the Democratic ticket. My position has not changed.
But that's Biden and the Democratic ticket. Do you support Biden on the ticket or just Biden and whatever the ticket is?
Same answer.
We have a great president. He has a great record working with us, a great record of achievement.
I have spoken to the president over the weekend. I have spoken with him extensively. He made clear then, and he has made clear since, that he is in this race. The matter is closed. He had reiterated that this morning. He has reiterated that to the public. Joe Biden is our nominee. He is not leaving this race. He is in this race, and I support him.
I really do believe that the more members of our caucus who speak directly to him, the more confident they will feel. So I've encouraged the White House to make sure that the president does as much outreach as possible, or not the White House, but the campaign, that the president does as much outreach as possible.
All right, listen, I'm not here to give advice to my colleagues. They all have independent districts and things that they feel like they have to do. I do think that we should continue to have whatever conversations we need to have with our constituents, with our
we need to have whatever conversations we need to have with our colleagues. And if it means that Joe Biden is going to be a liability at the top of the ticket, we're going to call for him to step down. That's what's going on right now. It's my take. My take is some of these people are calling for him to step down because they know it doesn't play with their district. And so they've got to be on record saying, look, I never wanted Joe. Vote for me in spite of the fact that our presidential candidate is weak and pathetic and incapable. You all have to talk to your district the way you need to talk. They're kind of explaining it to you what that looks like. The lie has to be whatever needs to be sold. Look, there's a historical position for this, by the way. Even when I was in high school, I remember this. My first government class that I ever took, I can't think of her name, man. And she was a mean lady too. Anyway, high school, senior year, junior year, something like that. And the discussion was this, is that Congress has a incredibly low approval rating among the American people, but Congress people have very high ratings in their own districts. And the question was, is that a paradox? How does that happen? And it happens the same way that it's happening, just like Jayapal just said right there. What they do is they say, I represent you. I am like you. I am one of you. I live here. This is our district. You need to send me to go fight those crooks, those scoundrels, those scumbags in Congress. And I will bring the fight to Washington, D.C. How many times have we heard that? I want to go to D.C. to fight for you. Like, piss off. There's a reason why we're starting to keep calling this a uniparty, why we keep saying that all these people, they all play the same playbook. They're all buddies afterwards. They all go hang out in the same restaurants. They have the same circles socially. They hang out with the same lobbyists that pay them the same monies, right? So all of that, their campaigns are funded by the same groups because the goal is staying in office, staying in power, which is why if you guys listen to Jesse Kelly, and I always like his take, yesterday he was ranting. He's like, who cares what the Republicans' platform is? If we thought they had any ability to carry it out, we'd all be shocked. They don't. They never do. So the game is always the same. Can you just lie to the people that need to elect you and tell them, look, I'm going to go fight these crooks, and then go out there and then you're a crook? The only reason why Congress is crooked and the way the reason we believe and have such a low feeling of confidence in their ability to do any job is because they don't do their job. They gave it up. This goes back to the 1940s. We've done this before. We've said the Administrative Procedures Act was when Congress basically said we don't want to do the hard work of writing bills that mean something. We'd rather just give broad mandates and let the executive do it. We'd like to elect a king. But if you're out there campaigning and saying, well, we're nothing like the others, but they're all like, you all have to be. It's an aggregate body. There's 100 in the Senate. There's 435 in the House. They all do the same damn thing. Must they? Like, there's a few people that are allowed to be dissidents. You get a Thomas Massey here and there. They can't all operate the same way, but all be operating not the same way. They come back to the district and they say what they need. So that's why you're going to see people dissenting against it. This always gets fun, I think. And here's the last little, I have some other slides here of all the people. Let me just show you the generations, this age generation. This is the other thing. They learn this game. The boomers, baby boomers, are the largest piece by a lot. 65% of the Senate was born before 1964. And 48% of the House, by the time you add in the 5% for the silent generation, you add 50% of the House is over that age bracket. Like, they're all boomers and silent gen. Like, for 50%, that's crazy. Gen X should be the single biggest piece in there. They're the people that are in the power range of 65 to 80. 1965, people quite a bit older than me. That's where it should be. But instead, it's 24% in the Senate and only 38% in the House. That should be the place that's representing people who have establishment, understanding, a little bit of wisdom about the world, a little bit of energy still. The millennials should actually be a bigger piece than they are. Look at that. You see that the silent generation, people born before 1945, represent more than millennials by like almost 3x in the Senate. That's wild. That's just absolutely wild. It's not a healthy situation when we're so top heavy with age. In any case, I'll stop ranting about age because it does bother me, but it is a thing out there. All right, let's throw a little idea. You know what we haven't talked about for a while? We do have a code that you guys can support the program if you guys are in the market for MyPillow. I don't even have the slide up anymore, but mypillow.com. If you guys want to use the promo code Kyle over there, you can do that. I just used my towels the other day. I just had to throw them in. You know what I really hate doing is washing towels. So buy yourself a bunch of them, then you don't have to do as many laundry. And I'm the only one that uses the MyPillow towels. My wife has some other fancy towels. We have like 3 different brands of towels, and I've been using the blue MyPillow ones. I have quite a bit. So if you guys want to do that, if you guys want to go over there and buy something through them, I see that you guys continue to use our code. Just letting you know, it's KYLE. It's always in the show notes. If you're always wondering, that's where you can go find it. But it's really easy to remember. It's my first name. I want to pivot to something kind of totally different, but this is yet another kind of example of not living up to principle. This is fun. This is a fun little story coming out. Not that what's going on in D.C. It is an indication of how crappy Washington, D.C. is. You notice it made it on the Republican plank. We've had FBI agents carjacked in D.C., and now a Supreme Court justice was almost carjacked as well. So 2 deputy marshals. I like the Marshal Service. They're good at what they do. They're manhunters, and they do protection for justices and for some judges. And so a Supreme Court justice bodyguard, which is really a federal protective detail, shot would-be carjackers in Washington, D.C. at 1 a.m. There's a lot going on in this story when you start looking at the details. The marshals were parked outside the house. That's what they do. It's in D.C. Northwest, July 5th, when Kentrell Flowers, no photograph shown, 18 years old, allegedly walked up to one of their cars and pointed a gun at one of the federal agents. I'm going to just give a free piece of advice if you live in the D.C. area. You're not listening to the show, but maybe send it to some of the urban youths that are out there in the Washington, D.C. area. If you see 2 men sitting in a car idling at night at 1:15 in the morning, you may have just found a really good target with a couple of homosexual men engaged in some sort of illicit liaison. But more likely, you're walking up on a federal protective detail or surveillance team, and you will get yourself killed. You're more likely to get yourself killed. So someone needs to warn the youths. Warn the youths that you don't want to go point guns at strange men in cars. I had someone do that to me as well. Actually, what did they find? He had a Smith & Wesson Sigma. They didn't name it, but I can tell what it is. I had one of those once. Federal agents drew somebody with a gun out, and you're not prepared to get shot back. They always say action beats reaction. And so if you're holding the gun static and somebody decides to take the action to draw and shoot, by the way, I've done that. I've done that training scenario where someone holds a gun on you and then they're trying to do, all you got to do is get them talking about what they want. you can kill them dead right there. So I've pulled a gun in the middle of the night. It's probably like 2 or 3 a.m. We were actually watching a alleged serial killer who turned out to be an actual serial killer, which I could talk about on another show. Maybe we'll talk about it with Steve Friend on Friday because he was convicted. We were sitting out there in the dark outside of this hotel. Engines running. Dude came up and tried to get into the car. It's a good way to get a gun barrel in your face at 2 or 3 in the morning. Number one, if you want to see if someone's in the car, look through the windshield first. Anyway, kind of fun because Sotomayor is one of those who hates gun rights for you. Doesn't think that you should be able to own weapons, votes against firearm freedoms, and votes against the Second Amendment. But got saved by a good guy with a gun, security detail, doing the thing that needs to be done, stopping crime out there in the streets. Isn't that interesting? Do you think she's going to change her position at all? Nope. Just going to keep living there and being weird. Speaking of time with the FBI and what they spend their money on, not just following serial killers like my team used to do. No, they are spending their time investigating Twitter. Why not? This is coming from NPR. I got actually a text message from Sean Witzman the other day, and it was a list of all these different unsealed indictments and search warrants that the Justice Department had put out. It was in Arizona. They are apparently investigating Twitter accounts because that's what we really need, because they're worried about Russian bot farms. This is actually one of the funniest articles, so I want to read a couple of pieces from it. U.S. Justice Department said they interrupted a Russian propaganda campaign using fake social media accounts. It was powered by AI to spread disinformation. Whoa, all the scary stuff. Like what this really is like garbage accounts that end in a lot of numbers. I saw the accounts actually. You can go find them online if you want to read them. They all have like Janice, and then it's like 7655533B. So anyway, when you see these kind of accounts, a lot of times you're not arguing with real people. I just block a lot of these stuff now. But we're talking about Russians trying to influence our elections. So they're making this argument. It was part of a Kremlin-approved and funded project through RT, which is Russia Today. That's one of the claims against Steve Friend, by the way. He went on RT. Actually, Steve went on with another organization, and then they were actually a front organization for RT, and then RT played the interview, I believe, of Steve Friend, and they're like, Steve Friend's giving interviews to RT. It's like, okay, come on, dude. In any case, the story is that it was funded by a Kremlin intelligence officer who actually works over at RT, and that was also the unnamed editor. So at some point, we'll see an indictment by the FBI for this person for crimes against the whatever social media legitimacy. They're going to go after election integrity, and when they do, then they'll never be able to arrest this person because we can't reach into Russia and get them. So that's always really funny, too. It says intelligence and security officials have been warning that Russia is ramping up propaganda efforts in a busy global campaign year. So we've been hearing about this. Now they got to give you the evidence of it. This is all kind of predictive. Does it do anything? No. Does it change anything for us? No. Were you getting garbage information and thinking, oh, that must be really legit? Like they're pro-Russia. No, we're all kind of suspect of when we read these things. The funniest thing is Chris Wray's little statement. He says, quote, Russia intended to use this bot farm to disseminate AI-generated foreign disinformation, scaling their work with the assistance of AI to undermine our partners in Ukraine and influence geopolitical narratives favorable to the Russian government. Now, I think the American government's doing a good job of that by giving all of our money to Ukraine when they're obviously corrupt. That's Chris Wray's statement. How many buzzwords did he get into that? The funny thing is they refer to these things as bot farms, right? And so when asked for a comment about the allegation, the Russia Today press office replied, quote, this is so funny. I love this. Farming is a beloved pastime for millions of Russians, end quote. That's what they had to say about the bot farm. Farming is a beloved pastime. Like that should be a meme. I wish I had that. I wish I had that in video format because they don't care. Bot farms cost them nothing, by the way. They just reboot with new accounts and load them all up, and they could do it again. And with AI, this is a zero effect. This probably took years to take down. Tons of information had to be sent over and lots of going through IP addresses and tracking things backwards, right? To be able to reboot the bot farm, which has the same hardware they didn't shut down, all they need to do is have new accounts. So they will just generate more Janice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5s, and then they'll be back in business. Very silly. This is federal law enforcement cosplay. If you want to know what the FBI does, it does cosplay. It does press releases with no effect. This was their big push, and they're going to do it again. There's a couple other things I want to be aware of while we talk about it. The funniest thing is that CNN cannot help but be shocked about the summer. So we're going to talk about this extreme heat. It's the deadliest natural disaster except for extreme cold, which kills more people. We've covered that on the show before. They are shocked to find out at CNN that summer equals warm temperatures. So they're going to talk about climate change, and they do. Apparently, extreme heat is far deadlier than other natural disasters. So if you look at their headline, this is always my fun little game. Extreme heat is the deadliest natural disaster. And then the first line, extreme heat is far deadlier than other natural disasters, killing twice as many as hurricanes and tornadoes combined. But they don't mention that cold is actually the problem because they want to do the global warming thing, even though they have to do the climate change thing because global warming has been debunked and it doesn't work. And sometimes it's colder than others. So they it's really hot, people. It's summer. Okay. So take care and make sure that you don't go hang out in Death Valley where it's 130 degrees. And, you know, it's been 105 degrees for 44 consecutive days in Phoenix. That's what they said. And there's a lot of temperatures that are over 100. When I was a kid in Dallas, going to high school, I remember that it was over 100 degrees for 100 days in a row. That's what summer is. That's what summer is in Texas. That's what summer is in New Mexico. It's what it is in Arizona. It's what it is in parts of California, in some of the Central Valley. It's just freaking hot, man. It's the desert. What did you think it was like? They're so shocked. They're so shocked by this stuff. It's incredible to see. And this is front page news. Meanwhile, I'm kind of tracking one other thing here that I think is worth us talking about because this could have the potential to blow up into something. And you guys should at least know that it is brewing. A couple of different stories. Local news is touching it. CNN touched it a little bit. Washington Post touched it. I don't know if this guy's going to have the background to go the distance for the outrage farming, but you're seeing on the screen right now, black man dies crying for help after hotel security guards pin him down, video shows. The Milwaukee police are investigating the killing of Devontae Mitchell, whose death has drawn comparisons, to George Floyd. Now, why is this a real problem? It's Milwaukee. It's Milwaukee. It has very similar vibes to George Floyd in the same way that there was one white guy involved, which the articles are very quick to point out. There was one of the 4 security guards was white. I don't know why that matters, what the race of the security guards were, but the rest of them were not. They were various peoples of color, as described here. And this happened a couple days ago. So this happened on June 30th. Now, there's some really interesting things. Of course, his sister-in-law steps up and says that he was treated like he was nothing. No mention of the woman that is described as his widow being his wife. I've read all these stories, so I'm not sure how he had a sister-in-law if she wasn't his wife. It's very strange, whatever the family situation is. They're dancing around calling him, they're like, he was an important brother, and he was a father. They never say that he was a husband. That seems like the number one thing in my life that I would describe myself as. So it's very weird. But he has an 8-year-old kid. And look, it's not something to celebrate about. It's actually very sad that someone dies because security guards are, but there's something else going on here. They claimed that he had mental health problems, and that was well known. Then why did you let him go into a hotel? It looks like it was in broad daylight. It's 4 p.m., so he's being pinned down outside of the hotel. And at least one of the stories, which I think was only CNN covered it, Mitchell, who's the guy on the ground, is screaming, I'm sorry. And then he starts saying that he's struggling or whatever. And somebody reported that he was also, one of the security guards yelled at him, that's what happens if you go into the women's bathroom. So this is the one question. If he was actively in the middle of going after women or assaulting women, then it's going to be a real problem for the left. But otherwise, they can run this racism narrative that nobody cares about this guy's life. And, it's just going to be a free-for-all. Like I said, the most interesting thing to me, it's in Milwaukee. So they're going to be able to have the parallels right next to the RNC, which is going to be next week. Benjamin Crump, unsurprisingly, is representing the family. Just something to be aware of on there. It's not a news story because it's over a week old right now, and it may not catch fire, but it is something that is making it from local news to national news. There are stories written today in the Washington Post, so that made me kind of keep track of it and take a look at it. Like I said, I think the family dynamics is going to be the other interesting piece, and they said that he's long faced mental health issues. He was 43 years old. He's a big guy. Big, heavy-set dude. A lot of things could be going on in a mental health emergency, but the women's bathroom piece may be the one thing that keeps them from touching this, them being the mainstream media running this with that kind of ugly racism narrative. All right, I've got one more story that I want to hit with you guys, then we'll have a good palate cleanse here. Maybe 2 more. Let's throw this up there. I always monitor Las Cruces local news because I used to live there, but it also is a really good tiny town on the border that most of you are not familiar with. This is the open border, the reality of the open border. And I just wanted to kind of touch it as a worthwhile story. This is what started off as a missing teenager, a 17-year-old who went missing, and for the last few months, people have not been able to find. We'll be shocked to learn that he was actually involved in human smuggling, because that is an opportunity that you can have if you're a young Hispanic male that wants to get into a life of crime and you live near the border. So a missing teen found after allegedly smuggling migrants near Las Cruces. That's the headline. It is local news only. A lot of the smuggling that goes on and human suffering that happens in this country is in fact local news, and it doesn't get picked up by the national, even though this is a national problem. You would think that violation of our national border and our sovereignty there is an issue. So good work on the New Mexico State Police who ended up finding this kid. New Mexico State Police found this guy, Leland Antonio Munoz Domingo, 17 years old. Now a 17-year-old charged with 3 counts of human trafficking, 1 count of child endangerment, because one of the migrants, or illegal aliens in this case, was underage. So you've got a 17-year-old smuggling and a 16-year-old and 2 adults stopped at a Border Patrol checkpoint on I-25 near mile marker 27. I know that one. And yep, Border Patrol did what they do. New Mexico State police officer was there doing a traffic stop as well, identified the driver, found out that he was missing, investigated further, was going to release him to grandmother when they started hearing hard knocks on the vehicle's trunk. Now, the illegals know what to do. They want to get in front of Border Patrol. They want to be found by law enforcement so that they can go and make their asylum claims as they've been coached. And that's what exactly happened here. But just imagine riding in the trunk in New Mexico in the moment that CNN has now found out how hot it is, that it's over 100 degrees in all these places. You want to ride in the trunk? They got a picture of the 3 illegals, which I didn't throw on the screen here, but they're sitting there. They had just basically like a jug of water, and they were stuck in the trunk of a passenger car. Not a lot of room for 2 adult males and 1 16-year-old female. Seems problematic. Of course, you always wonder about a 16-year-old female being trafficked in this way. The worst things happen to these people when this stuff goes on. So there's that. It's troubling. It's upsetting. It's worth knowing. The last thing is that there was kind of an interesting story, and I'll wrap up with this. There was an interesting story that was put out on Twitter yesterday by Joe Hanneman, who works over at Epoch Times. And it was the discussion about a complete smackdown legally for Jake Lang. If you guys don't know, Jake Lang is one of those people that I'm accused of being mean to because he was a J6er who's kind of a piece of garbage. And the judge showed pictures of him attacking police officers. If you listen to people like Bill Shipley, who goes by Shipwreck Crew, used to write for Red State and defends a lot of J6ers, the argument has to continue to be made that the J6ers are not all the same types of people. They did not all do the same things on that day, and some of those people got involved in violence, and they should, in fact, go to prison or jail. Snake Lang, as the chat is saying, yeah, that's what I call him. Snake Lang also hits me up all the time. His social media manager is always trying to get me to do stuff with them. And in any case, he had a 5-page rebuttal to these claims that are being made, and they won't be broadcast out on his social media channels where people go and donate tons and tons of money. But I wanted to give you kind of a taste of what he's about. Let me just show you what the judge cited as the reason for not releasing him, not going to release him to the public, claiming that he's a danger to the public. I don't think he's probably a danger to the public either, but he's not a good dude. This is what he was doing on January 6th. There are 10 assaults on federal officers that he's charged with. He's going to go to prison. I mean, it's inevitable. He's being charged, and he's going to be convicted of this. All right, so he's swinging a baseball bat, proactively pushing into a space he doesn't need to. He's holding a police shield. He's got a aluminum baseball bat, which he wrongly refers to as a steel baseball bat. You can't swing a bat at the cops, people. There's another a-hole in there who's like got a backpack on and he's holding a chair leg. You can actually see the bolt that goes through. I do not want to get hit with that either. If you're out there swinging that stuff against cops, like, you are going to go to jail because you're stupid. That's a stupid thing to do. Don't be that. I'm going to show you also Jake Lang footage of when he was interviewed afterwards. So he was wearing that black leather jacket. If you guys didn't see it, he's reaching over the top to swing and hit cops in the shields, which they're blocking from him. And he's wearing a black leather jacket, which is very distinctive. And he's also wearing a gas mask. And he claims that he just found the baseball bat that was just thrown there. Maybe he did. Maybe he just found a baseball bat on the ground. That's a possibility. When I find a baseball bat on the ground, my first move isn't grab it and go hit cops. That's how you end up getting held to the ground until you die. So he didn't. Let me just show you this. This is him in his own words. I just wanted to cover it because there's a lot of people that cover for every single person that's in jail for J6 stuff. Many of them deserve that coverage because they didn't do things that we could consider jail worthy. This guy did stuff and then he said about it. He was real proud about it. There's no qualms about what kind of guy Jake Lang was. And here you go. You might as well know what it looks like. Oh, here we go.
Can you just give me a brief of what happened, man?
One round's good, but maybe.
I had a steel baseball bat, fucking swinging for the stars.
Bro, can you give me? Do you know his name?
He's a fucking hero. Yeah.
Did the right thing.
He's a fucking hero.
My name's real Jake Lang.
Say it again. Jake Lang.
Jakelang.
Where are you at online?
On Instagram, Facebook. I got 32,000 on Instagram. Patriot. I own libertycentric.com. It's like Parler, but it's like an Instagram version. We give you freedom of speech and we fight the fuck for your rights.
Absolutely. Can you give me a brief what happened to you?
No.
All right, there's plenty more on that. If you guys want to find it, it's online. We actually shared it on Joe's thread, and you can follow Steve Baker and see some of this stuff. Some people are not as good as other people, and that guy is garbage. And so when you say you're swinging for the stars, and you're going to go to jail. He admitted who he was. He says who he is. He's wearing the same clothing. This is cut and dry stuff. So if you're donating money to anything that Jake Lang is involved in, like, that's a scam. That dude is trash. And I don't care if he's decided to do some good things with the money. Bill Shipley has been pretty clear and screenshotted a lot of the amount of money that has been kind of hidden. There were multiple different campaigns he did on Give, Send, Go. The dude is garbage. He's been covered for by a lot of people on the right, people that are otherwise decent, and I don't have any problem with them per se. But if they're not doing their homework and looking at this stuff and saying, hey, the dude swung a bat, like, go to jail, go do 10 years. The reason why he's doing he was not asking for pretrial release, by the way, is because he knows he's going to serve those times. He's going to get credit for time that he's serving, and he's better off in the jail system right now as opposed to being in the federal system when he's not going to have access to the phones and all this. So he's staying in jail serving his time while he's got a little bit more leeway as a pretrial detention. And the judge just said, we're not releasing you. You're a danger to the public because you're an asshole. And he is. You can just see, like, also, he doesn't even know what a baseball bat is. I don't know if that guy ever played sports, but I've never heard of a steel baseball bat. It's almost always aluminum. So anyway, that's weird. We're going to wrap it up there. If you guys want to support the merch store, if you guys want a handsome looking blue shirt like this, I wear these things out all the time. We get a lot of looks because they're a nice looking piece, and you can get them at the Suspendables merch store. It's the-suspendables.com. Again, the-suspendables.com. Use the promo code Kyle if you want to take 10% away from the Garrett family, from the O'Boyle family sweatshop rather, and put Garrett to work. You guys can do that. Really appreciate all of you joining us. Let's do I didn't grab a 5-star review. I'll grab one. Let me give you this thing. We talked about old people, so let me just pivot to our end here. Our end goal was a pickleball instructor. I don't know why I thought this was funny, but pickleball, it's kind of fun, but it's not serious. This guy makes fun of it. Seems like another sort of instance of old people getting after it. Here we go.
I'm a pickleball instructor. You need to be bouncy. To be honest with you, I have no idea why this sport exploded. These people have no idea how much of a scam this is. So what you're doing wrong is you're donking your dinks. When you're dinking, you can't be donking. That's you. You're donking your dinks. I'm just making shit up at this point. Sometimes you go rogue, all right? So I call this a cycloning. This isn't even a real sport. It was invented for the elderly to improve their blood circulation. Now every 30-something with no stamina and bad knees is hitting me up to learn how to play. These people are too unathletic for tennis and too poor for golf. This is their only option. Dink it. You call that dinking? I am making so much money off of this. The key to pickleball is a good paddle. I'm selling these for $300 a piece. Who wants one? Yeah, I got really burned by crypto. This really saved me. You'd be surprised with what people believe when they're paying you $150 an hour. This is why they call it pickleball. Okay, ready? Pickle. There you go, right there. See how I did that? I'm hopping on this trend now, because God knows it's not going to be around long, okay? In 2 years from now, everyone's going to be obsessed with badminton. When you're serving, fake them out a little bit. Do some fake outs. What's that? Boom, there you go.
Badminton is an Olympic sport, but not pickleball. So yeah, a couple years, we're going to get there. I like the idea of being too poor for golf too. You guys picked up on all this stuff. It's a sport for old people. All right, here's a 5-star review from MCM Fitz, coming in from that big push we did in May. Love the show. Try to watch on Rumble every day. You have some. We don't know what you put in there because you put it in the title. 5 stars. Keep you the good work. I'm going to say that's keep up the good work. Sometimes you guys write funny stuff. I actually laugh at these all the time because I'm like, yep, that's how it works when you do an autocorrect or you're trying to type something on a silly app. If you guys want to have your own 5-star review read, including with typos, I will do so. Put it up on Apple. The link is in the old shows. We may not even put it up anymore. We're just going in there. Just go to Apple and put it on Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere you go. If there's an opportunity to review the show, give us a review and we'll read it for you. We really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a great day this weird Wednesday. Go out there and be aware that you're being run by the old. And if you're young, think about running for office. I guess we'll all have to do that. We'll talk about that a little bit more another time. God bless you. See you again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.